Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man. He'll unpack wisdom and insights from a cross-section of top quality performers in business, media, sports, entertainment, and lifestyle to uncover key elements to help you live your best audacious life ever. So without further ado, here is the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations. Thank you for joining me on another edition of the Audacious Living Podcast, where our goal is to help you live your best audacious life ever. It's always a pleasure to be here and share with each and every single one of you. And I first off want to say thank you for joining the podcast. Now, since I'm extending my thanks, I think it's only right that I thank you in advance for supporting the Audacious Living Podcast on social media, where you can like, follow, and share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're on Twitter, Facebook, I'm missing one, Instagram. We're on Instagram as well, too, so you can certainly follow, like, and share, and stay connected to all things audacious living. And did I mention subscribe on the YouTube channel? Yeah, because if you hit that red button, if you're watching on YouTube and you're hitting that red button below, you can definitely keep up to speed to all the new content. Listen, I'm pumped today for today's episode because the Audacious Living Podcast is officially powered by rocket fuel. That is right. We got none other than my man Mike C-Roc Ciorrocco in the house, who's the author of the brand new book Rocket Fuel. He talks about taking past adversities and setbacks and converting them into rocket fuel, which you can use to become unstoppable. So it's great to have him on the show to share. He's got a lot of good stuff. So I tell you what, I'm going to stop and not waste any time. I'm going to get into Mike, hear what he's got to say. I'm telling you, you're going to be pumped. You're going to be inspired. You're going to walk away feeling like I am unstoppable and I can achieve anything. So without further ado, here's my man, Mike C-Roc. Enjoy. Mike C-Roc Ciorrocco is the visionary and powerhouse behind the What Are You Made Of movement. He's a performance coach, author, dynamic public speaker, and thought leader who's determined to inspire others to achieve greatness. In his new book, C-Roc shares how to convert past adversity into rocket fuel, to break free from the negative pain of pull and despair, to become unstoppable, and in turn, take command of your future. C-Roc is up next on the Audacious Living Podcast. Mike, really, like I said, really pleased to have you here, and thank you for taking the time. Fan of your work, love what you do. It's very much in line with what we spend a lot of time on this podcast talking about, which is really being bold with it and being audacious with it, and really going after what's meant to be yours, quite frankly. I got to know, where did it start for you, Mike? Like, what got you on this path, this journey?
Well, first of all, since you hit the recording button now, I want to just express gratitude to you, because I always like to start every interview with thanks. And I'm just honored with the opportunity to be able to come on and share with you and your audience, and very humbled by it. So thank you, Audley.
Thank you. With
that being said, I've been through a lot in my life, man. I think all of us have, but I grew up around a lot of broken people.
Right.
And, I came from a broken family. Don't remember my parents ever together.
Right.
And, what that led to, as a kid, I was the oldest of all the kids. After my parents were remarried, there's 7 other children. But that led to me being the only link between my parents having to communicate.
Right.
There's a lot of conflict that comes from that. And so, from 0 to 8, I lived with my mom. And then when I was 8, my mom decided to remarry to her 3rd husband. And I wasn't fond of living in another man's house again, and I'm not putting my mom down by this. That was her journey.
Sure.
But, I decided to move in with my dad and his second wife, his new wife, and tried that out. And for 3 years, from 8 to 11, it was a lot of traumatic, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, threats. I used to sleep with a bat when I was 9 years old, because I was scared. And, a lot of conflict, man. Step parents get involved. Their agendas are involved. Then there's conflict with child support, custody, all that. So
yeah.
in living in that, you know, for 3 years, after 3 years, I decided to get out of there, and I asked my mom to file court papers.
Wow.
And she said, if you do this, and if I do this, you can't flip and flop. You can't let them talk you out of it, because listen, in life, when you believe in something, you need to stick to your guns, because people are going to try to talk you out of things. And you need to understand that being stubborn, I took this as being stubborn,
Right.
which if you look up the definition of stubborn, oddly, it says perversely unyielding.
Mm.
And that a lot of people think stubborn has a negative connotation, but it doesn't. It's not the wrong thing when it's on the right thing.
Gotcha.
So I took that from her, and I'm to this day 40 some years old now. I still use that mantra, man, perversely unyielding, stick to your guns. So when my dad finally got delivered the court papers, came home from school one day, and I didn't know when that day was going to come. And he told me to go to my room, and I sat there and waited for about 5 minutes probably, but it felt like 5 hours.
Right.
Because I had no idea what was going to happen after this happened. You know, I didn't know that I wasn't going to be plucked right from there, and I would still have to live in that environment. Right. So this is, you know, again, people have had it tougher than I have, but this is some things that I dealt with that, you know, really expressed where I came up with a rocket fuel concept, which we'll talk about.
But it's a big deal to you, Mike, in that moment. Like, I mean, I totally get it. People have gone through all sorts of things, but at the age of 11 or 12 years old, it's a big deal.
Yeah. I agree. I just want to acknowledge that there's people, you know, I told this story in one day, and there's a friend of mine now, he came from Poland, and he grew up in an orphanage till he was 18. So I keep reminding myself about that, you know, but shout out to Marcine. He's an awesome cat. But so when I got these court papers, I was sitting on my bed. My dad, my hero, came back, and he had these big forearms all the time, man, rough hands. He was a mason. He used to lay block and brick and pour concrete. And I love that about him, like the hard worker. And you know what? He also had $100 bill, a wad of $100 bills in his pocket all the time. Okay. And he used to flash it and show us, and had, you know, just what money got us. I thought that was cool. Right.
Yeah.
So when he came back there and confirmed that I wanted to leave, he tried to get a discussion going, and I wasn't having it. I remember my mom saying, stick to your guns. And he said, but they don't have anything there. They're poor. Like, they don't have any money. She's on her third marriage, you know, all this stuff. Right. And here I'm an 11-year-old kid. Like, I don't need to, this isn't up for me to worry about. Like, that's not my problem, you know, but I didn't get into it. I just said, you know, nope. I made my mind up. He said, okay. So he takes that wad of $100 bills out of his pocket. He peeled one off, crumpled it up, and threw it at me and said, well, you're going to need this then when you're living on the streets with your mother one day. And, you know, my stubbornness kicked in, of course. And I'm like, you know what? That ain't going to happen. I'm not going to need that. I want to make sure that doesn't happen. And number two, I thought to myself, this is like an ordinary situation. I didn't know any different. I thought there's other people going through the same stuff. Yep. I'll be able to show people that you can go through something like this and excel. And I at 11 years old, my mom always used to tell me I was a leader and I was going to inspire people. I was going to make a difference. And that stuck with me, man. It programmed me. So long story short, about 30 some years, I've been driving off that little spark that my dad did to me, which I thank him. And I don't get to see him now, unfortunately, not by my doing, but I thank him because he challenged me. And what happened, whether it was just because he was upset, felt let down, whatever the case was, what happened was I got set on a journey to become an unstoppable, oddly. And what I mean by that is all my life, I did an assessment a couple of years ago of my life. And I'm like, why is my graph always going up? Why does my graph keep going up in health, money, finance, relationship? Why is it? Like, what's going on here? Something, because I've had some bad things happen, but it was because I was taking everything that would stop the average person, slow them down, and I was converting it into rocket fuel, storing it in my tank instead of my trunk where it would weigh me down, and going way beyond the original position of the setback or the adversity.
Yep.
So that's where I came up with this. And when I found this out, my acknowledgement of this has led my graph now to go like a rocket ship trajectory rather than a gradual good graph. Yeah. Now it's going like this, and I'm going to teach other people how to do it.
Well, now you're even more focused. Like, I mean, you know, it was probably happening for you, but it was just what you knew. So you weren't thinking anything differently. But now it's like, wait a second. When the realization kicked in, the acknowledgement that you talked about, skyrockets. Yeah,
without a doubt. And you know what? I'm the type of guy that when you find something, I become an evangelist about it. I want to share it with people. I want to tell the world about this. So then the other thing that comes into play is, okay, well, if I told this story, because I didn't share that story with many people until I heard another guy share the story of him and his father. That was Pete Vargas.
Okay.
And I was at GrowthCon, I guess 2019. And I heard him share a story about his father, and I was sitting in the audience, and how it connected with me, and how it basically made everybody else in the audience disappear, 34,000 people.
Right.
And it was just me and Pete. He was on stage.
Yep.
And I'm hearing a story about his father. And I'm like, I got a story like this. So I started telling the story, oddly. And one person was inspired, 2, 10. And then I thought to myself, well, shoot, I just need, if all these people are inspired, I just need to find a way to reach hundreds of millions of people. What is that way? So I started asking myself that question. How? Started a podcast, and then just started making connections with everyone. And before you know it, I have friends all over the world that have heard my story and have been inspired by it. And it's just, that's what it's all about to me, man.
There's so much power in sharing. And I think for me, that's probably being one of the number one things that I zero in on, the fact that, you know, whatever adversity, challenge, struggle, whatever you want to call that, whatever you go through, and once you get to the other side, the way you can bring people along simply by sharing and telling your story. There's so much power in that. And what you're actually doing is lifting up other people unknowingly.
Yeah, get them on the rocket ship and taking them to outer space with me. That's what I say.
I love it. So rocket fuel. Let's jump into that, because that's the name. That's the title of your book, and it's out soon, or about to be out, I believe.
Yeah. It's supposed to be out mid-March, and we were supposed to be out in February, but we had a little delay with editing, and I want to make sure it's right, because a guy named Grant Cardone, you may or may not have heard.
Yeah.
He wrote the foreword for the book. I put his name on the cover. Forward by Grant Cardone, undercover billionaire, star of season 2. Rocket fuel is for you, he said. And he wrote this forward about what rocket fuel has meant to him in his life and his business.
Right.
And I wanted to make sure that I put out a good, I have standards that I want to keep to the product. So I wanted to make sure that happened. So yes, coming out in 2 weeks or so. And I'm having a book launch party in South Beach, March 11th. If anybody's listening to this, I don't know when this is going to be out, but you're more than welcome to come if you're in the Miami area. But the book was inspired by my journey. Gotcha. And all this story that I told you, there's many more in the book, but how I came up with this concept and how I've applied it to my life, and stories that I've learned from my mentorship of some super successful people. Now, I didn't know what the book was going to be called. I have a podcast called What Are You Made Of? And I asked that question to myself a lot.
Yep.
And I thought I was going to name it that, but it didn't have enough punch. And funny little story, you see the W for what, and then the AYMO, the first letters, Waymo. Yep. I kept saying Waymo. That was my battle cry for a while. Waymo, what are you made of? Waymo. And Google sent their attorneys after me and sent me a letter, said I had to stop using that because Alphabet, the parent company of Google, has a self-driving car technology called Waymo.
Oh.
And so they told me to stop using it, and I wasn't making money off of it. I was just using it as a battle cry, but I still didn't fight them. And I just said, all right, whatever.
Right.
So we named the book Rocket Fuel because when I had an interview with Grant, I was talking to him. One of the questions I had with him was, what is it going to take to get us to outer space? Like, what is it? And you know what that meant is like really finally making it, like where you could go someplace and gravity, the suppressors don't have an effect on you anymore.
Right.
And so I started thinking, and his answer to that question was, most people don't want to talk about that. They don't want to hear what that would take. And but it started making me think, rocket fuel, man. Rocket fuel gets you there. If you take everything that stops you or slows you down and convert it to rocket fuel for your future, you can't be stopped until you're plucked from this planet.
Got you.
So that's how it came up. And then the book will basically get people starting to think about becoming unstoppable and start doing the things it takes to become unstoppable, because it's a proactive approach. It's not something you can do right in an adversity.
Right.
While you're in an adversity, there's too much chaos, emotions, light at the end of the tunnel. Yep. So you need to prepare yourself ahead of time to handle these things, and then you become unstoppable.
Unstoppable. I want to talk about that conversion piece, because that's a big one, right? You're saying to convert it into rocket fuel. What does that look like conversion when you talk about that?
So here's what happens. First of all, you got to prepare yourself. What I mean by that is prepare your mind, understanding that in life there's good and there's bad.
Sure.
Because if there wasn't a good, there wouldn't be a bad. If there wasn't a bad, there wouldn't be a good. There's darkness and lightness because there's both of each other, right? So in life, it's experiences that we experience, and they're labeled good or bad.
Gotcha.
If you don't want to live, then don't go through the bad and the good. Don't live, right? That's the choice we have. Right. So what we really need to wrap our heads around is the fact that we're going to go through things that we don't want to go through. We're going to experience things. So acknowledging that right away. The other thing is understanding that no matter how good you are or how well you try or the things, massive actions that you take, bad things are going to happen.
Right.
You can't escape it.
Yep.
Right. So if you already know that's the case, then you might as well prepare yourself by reading books, being mentored, being around the people that speak good things to you, encourage you, being very selective with your surroundings of friends and coworkers, preparing your body, lifting and making sure you're eating healthy and running and cardio, spiritual. How's your spirituality? How's your mental game? Like all these things we have to do. It's not because people say it's good to do and it's self-help. It's because it prepares you for those things. And so that's how it starts. Then from there, when you get really good at this, you start looking for setbacks. You're like looking forward.
It's like, bring them on.
It's like Navy SEALs that train. Like they're looking for missions, man. They want missions. They don't want to be waiting for a call.
That's right.
Right. So this is what it's all about. It's preparing yourself for these. So you want and go get it. It's problems you're looking to solve these problems. So, but when that does come, it's important to acknowledge it, that it's happening. Okay, here's a setback. Here's the opportunity. And then when a Navy SEAL gets a call of a mission, a lot of times they're prepared. And then they're going, right? They acknowledge the fact that they got to go on a mission, then accept it. They're not in denial. They're not going to deny that the thing's happening and sit still. They're going to move. And that last part is move, take action. What are you doing about it to solve the problem? Where's the opportunity? Start looking for the opportunity. Too many people will wait 6 months, a year, look back on a setback and say, oh, I see the opportunity that was there now. It makes sense. It was meant to happen. Why not look at it while it's going on? And see what you could do and take advantage of at that moment. And it gives you a big head start and allows you to blow past your competition.
What I love about that mindset really is you do it once, right? Then the next challenge comes up, you're like, I've done this before, right? Let's get the next one. And you start knocking them off one at a time. And what that does is it builds your confidence one after the next, and that propels you to that unstoppable mindset. Is that where we're going?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, bottom line, man, I like to make things simple.
Right.
Either we're going towards something or away from it. We're building or tearing down, creating or destroying. Like that's my filter. Now you have to know what you're going towards. Like what do I mean going towards or away? Going towards my purpose, going towards solving problems. And that gives you that filter to decide whether your thoughts, your words, your actions are going towards that or away from it. And, so I like to simplify things 100%, and it's made all the difference in the world for me. And then people around me, the confidence that it's building, it's a movement. Like it's something that, by the way, all thought leaders have the same kind of concepts, but they all frame them differently.
Sure.
Mine just happens to be called rocket fuel, baby.
Yeah, it totally is. It is. And I love about the fact that it's all, you're always building on it. It doesn't just stop. Like, you don't just suddenly go, okay, good, I'm built, I'm ready to go. You're always in preparation mode. You're always in training. You can always add more to what you learn. You can always build on what you've already done. And what the other piece I like that you brought up is that it's the little things, right? It's the good habits, the training, the eating, the spiritual, all of those things build and fortify us for these moments of adversity.
Yeah. And here's an important thing. Like my coach, Richie Dolan, is one of my mentors and coach. He works with the Lakers and the Heat and LeBron James. And he said, HT equals LP, high tolerance equals low performance or productivity. LT equals HP, low tolerance equals high performance and productivity. So if you just start thinking about, like, again, it's all about simplifying things, because all the chaos in our lives, man, if you simplify things, it makes it easier. So that's what I think. Okay. Am I tolerating too much? Because I'm going to get low performance. And it doesn't, like, when you have that clarity, it makes things so much easier.
Yeah.
So that's what I go off of a lot. I talk to my team. I have a large mortgage division, Nations Lending, that, we talk about this stuff all the time. Guys, I get on you and you should get on me and not tolerate anything, even the little things, because when we do, our production and our productivity and performance is going to go down. Very simple. It's an equation.
That's right. You just said a simplification, right? Keep it simple as possible. Now Google's not going to come after me if I say Waymo, right? So I'm going to say Waymo.
All you want.
That's your brand. Now, because I think what happens is, what your brand does is it provides that clarity because it gives purpose, right? So when you ask that question, what are you made of? That consciously forces you to sort of think about that. So I wonder, might you sort of talk about just the importance of having purpose?
Well, yeah. So, but before I answer that question, I got to tell you something on Waymo real quick.
Yeah.
So this is a little story. I haven't told a lot of people this.
Okay.
So I do a lot of DMing through direct messages to Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook.
Sure.
And I met a guy named Jared Yellen.
Okay.
And he has a tech incubation company. It's like a tech lab, right? And we got together just through a DM. We partnered up. We founded a tech company. Now, remember the Waymo story, because when we started this company, I said to Jared, look, when we're going through this, like, I can't go through this without us all knowing where we're going in the grand picture, like the vivid vision of what's going to happen at the end of this. Because it's important for us to all be using, that's that purpose again, right? All our decisions need to be filtered through our end game here.
Right.
And so we wrote this vision statement out, this vivid, what's going to happen next. And I said, you know what? And I was looking at some research of companies that buy companies.
Right.
And I said, you know what? Alphabet Company sent me a letter one time, and they happen to own Google and Waymo. And what a great story it would be that we get our product up and running, which it's the MVP is coming out very soon for this new product called Blueprinted.
Okay.
And when it comes out, and I have all these connections now, I'm going to connect with people to get them into this platform. It's a social media platform, but it's also got this other part to it where anybody that's been successful that can reverse engineer their success, if they can put it into a task management system or some kind of format that way, they put it in the thing and they can sell their blueprints to success to anybody, right? Well, when we developed this thing, I put on there that we're going to sell it for $2.8 billion to Alphabet, because they sent me a letter that said I can't use Waymo. So I decided to pivot and go this direction. And what a great story that would be. So that's an example of setback into rocket fuel, right? Okay, how can I use this, store it in my tank for when it's ready, and fuel off of it? And that's what we did our vision statement off of, was that setback. Because I had a lot of stuff, hats, shirts, coaching programs, Waymo, this, Waymo, that, right?
Yep.
And that's my fault, by the way. I didn't check that out to make sure that would be okay. But at the end of the day, what a great story that would be when we exit this company for billions and they're the ones that end up buying it.
That's amazing. That's awesome. That's awesome.
So purpose, your question.
Yeah. Purpose. I mean, I think when we talk about the significance of having purpose, that gives us direction. And you talked about clarity. It gives us all of these things to help us point in the direction where we need to go.
Yeah. The purpose is your filter. So like my purpose is all people are unstoppable to live in the life of their dreams. So that's my thing. Now, how can I really get all people to do that? I don't know. That's not for me to determine, but that's my purpose. So everything I have to do, I have to be leading in a direction to lift people up, to help them realize that they're unstoppable to living in the life of their dreams. And so that helps me make my decisions. And it basically gives me an accountability manager that's like an invisible person or whatever that helps me and guides me. And that works for individuals. It works for families. It works for businesses, churches, any kind of organization. That's why it's important. Simon Sinek uses the word why. What's your why? Well, that's your purpose, right?
That's right.
And that's why his book was so popular and definitely impactful.
Well, and I think what happens, Mike, that it really makes you think and be conscious about your actions and decisions that you make, the places you go, the friends you hang out with. Like if they're not pointing in that upwards direction where you talked about earlier, then you have to ask yourself, why are we here?
Right. And if you're not doing that, look, we all do it at different levels, man. And we're all human. The more successful people are living with high intentionality to their purpose, and they're disciplined and they're executing at higher levels. As you go down, you're less and less effective, less and less productive, less and less successful. But some people are just going through life drifting and just roaming around and just whatever the way the wind blows. What am I going to do today? Am I just going to go to my 9 to 5 and just go do the job just like exactly what they tell me? Or am I going to go try to be the most valuable player on the team? I'm going to do more than I'm paid for. They would never be able to fire me if I do that. That's the kind of thoughts that you have to have. But yeah, 100%. And I just want people to be aware of it, because some people are going through this drifting or however you want to call it, blowing around with the way the wind blows, because they don't know. They don't know something.
That's right.
They're lacking information on something. So that's why you and we got to get this message out to people and be relentless about it to show them. So once they know, then they have the responsibility to act upon it.
That's right. Because ultimately, that last piece, like, you can do the awareness, you can do the acknowledgement, but that action, like those other two things mean nothing if you're not taking action. And that's probably the biggest challenge for a lot of people, whether it be through, past situations. I'm sure, you could have gone and used your experience from your childhood as an excuse for every bad thing that happened to you in your life, but that's not what you got to do to move forward, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's the choice, the roads you take, the fork at the road, which way are you going to take? Now, I will tell you, and this is important to understand. Like, I'm not saying that I was on the right road the whole time. When I turned 18, I ended up losing my purpose and losing my intentionality. And I started, I didn't drink anything until I got to college. When I was 18, I started drinking beer, slowly turned into liquor, shots, went to weed. I mean, it just led down this road. And then there was girls, right? I had girls in high school, but it wasn't, I lived in a small town and there was girls there, but it wasn't like college, man, where there was like, what type of girl do you want? Like brown hair, blonde hair, dark skin, light skin, whatever you wanted. It's like, it was like a candy shop for a teenage kid with hormones. Yeah. I'm just speaking like it is, by the way. I'm not, and I lost my focus and I was playing football. My intent was to go there to play football, become a sports broadcaster or get into some kind of communications or something. And I lost my way. All I was worried about was where was the next party and where are the girls? Yeah. I think there was a song called Where the Party At? Yeah. Girls was on the way, but where the Bacardi at? Something like that. I remember that song going through all the time, man. And I laugh, but it's not really good because I feel like I had some good times, but I feel like I wasted 7 years of my life where I could have got a bigger head start on my mission. But, sometimes you got to go through some things to realize things,
So what was the spark for you then at that point? So you talk
what got me out of it. So my best friend, Jason, was living with me, renting a room off a house I bought. Okay. And I was working. My friends were still in college. Some of them were starting to leave and go back home. And then the only people that were left, a lot of them were just partiers, drugs, alcohol. That's all. And I was hanging around with the wrong crowd. And I had a sales job. I wasn't doing very good. I wasn't feeling good. I was in a dark place. And my buddy Jason was with me and he would bring his girlfriend over. And I said, man, if you're going to bring her over here, she needs to bring some friends, man. It's not fair. You got to bring her over here. She got to bring a friend every time. You got to tell her that. So I'm just telling you the story like it is. I'm not saying that I was happy about the way I lived my life. All right. But
the true story is.
So he would bring a couple girls over and I just didn't connect with them. And then he brought this one young lady over. And when I got home from work, she was sitting on my couch and I walked in and I was like, is she here to sell us something or is she Kim's friend? Because I was hoping it was Kim's friend. Right. So I introduced myself and then we hit it off. And it was just like, it's cliche. I know people say this, but as soon as I saw her, I knew she was the one. Like that's who I'm marrying. And so that moment, like I still partied a little after that, but at moment I committed to something. I got my focus and intention. Now it was like, okay, I'm going to make her my wife. I'm going to start a family. And what do I need to do to make that the most successful family possible and the successful marriage as possible? And everything just started redirecting and focusing on those things. I remember going drinking and not like swearing it off. Like I'm never doing this again, maybe getting sick and feeling hungover and never doing this again. And I would wake up out of a haze in front of a urinal in another bar the next night and be like, what am I doing here? I'm drunk again. Right. And so that ended all that when I started figuring out, like, I didn't have to go to rehab. I didn't have to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm not, I don't think that I had an addiction to those things. I was addicted to lack of purpose and intentionality. And once I had that back, then I was on fire. And then from there, started taking off again.
What's crazy is that lack of purpose, that intentionality you talked about, that's what guided you. Whereas purpose usually guides you. The lack of not having it also guided you, but just in a different direction. And
guide you one way or the other, period.
Yeah. I think that's a really good way of putting it. And in terms of, where it's like choose your own adventure, right, Mike?
You want to be average, do average stuff. You want to be successful, do successful stuff. You want to be super successful, you got to do super successful, unreasonable, crazy stuff. That's all it comes down to. It really isn't rocket science. Yep. The strategy part, once you're committed and you start doing the success habits, then you start looking for strategy and technology and mentors and things to help you with those kind of things. Until you have your foundation of doing the right things on a consistent basis, all that other stuff doesn't matter because you won't stick with it.
That's right. And that's really what we're talking about, Mike. Like to find the things that we can stick to and commit to. Because commit to it. In your case, your wife, your family, all these things are important. And how do you, build that life that you want for your family? And that's, having that as a focus is, look, I'm a family man myself, so I get it loud and clear. I know what we're after as a father and husband.
And by the way, when I was going through that phase, man, I didn't like myself. Like that was a period of time where I man, I felt bad. And I knew this is not the life. I've seen all that. I grew up around alcoholics, drug addicts, suicide. I've grew up all that. This is not me, man. Like I was so I wrote about this in the book. I was so disappointed. If I go back and tell my 18-year-old self something, it would be, look, stick to your purpose. Don't worry about girls and women and all that. That stuff, that doesn't matter right now. The stuff that you're doing right now is not going to be getting quality spouse opportunities, like for men and women. Like it's not, you get yourself right, get consistent, get your money right, get on the right track. And then you'll have a larger selection of high quality partners to choose from. And I don't want that to sound the wrong way. I'm not talking about sleeping around and all that. I'm talking about partnership, lifelong partner. And that's what I would tell myself back then. Now, I got fortunate that it worked out, but I feel like I wasted a lot of time.
And listen, those are the lessons that you need to learn. Because I think what happens now, Mike, is you look back and you can sort of appreciate how far you've come, and that builds into your story that you share for everyone else. So, I mean, as much as I get it, because there's moments where I'm going, man, I wish I had done this differently, or I started this a lot sooner, or whatever. But there's a reason why we go through what we go through, and that's what gets us to the point, right? So I get it. I get it. Yeah. The other part about this is sometimes I think what happens is because we think we're like, we're a good person, let's say as an example, because you think you're a good person, everything will work out. But just being a good person isn't enough. You got to go beyond that and do more. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to take action, man. We talked about that already, and it's not just a little bit, but your actions got to be in the right direction, and the other thing is a lot of people talk about, don't you have enough? Like, how much do you need? Like, it's not about need. It's about abundance, because you know what? If I have a company of 30 some employees, if every employee decided to leave because I didn't continue to hire and train and recruit and focus and develop those people and all that, they were like, that's why I need abundance. If the rates in the mortgage industry, if the interest rates spike and refinances go away, what am I going to do then? Like, I need abundance to be able to get through and weather that storm. That's why I need abundance. Yeah. Same thing with families, like money, like COVID happens. Were people prepared when COVID happened? Did they have just enough, right? Did they have just enough? And they listened to people that said, how much do you need? Just make sure you have enough. Right. Huh. COVID happens and then they don't survive. Their business is shut down. They lose their jobs and they don't have a way to pay their bills. That's the part we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. The preparation.
Exactly.
I hear you loud and clear. Listen, Mike, I've really appreciated catching up with you and chatting, and love the concept, the whole idea of rocket fuel. It's powerful, it's vivid for people, and I think it really sends a clear message what we're trying to do. We're trying to uplift ourselves and take others along the journey as well. But so I want to congratulate you for that. Let our listeners know where they can catch up to you. Download your book, hear your podcast. What are you made of? Yeah, where can we send them?
The best thing is you go to MikeCroc.com. That's Mike, CROC.com. That's the main website. And if you just push /book, that goes to the book. And by the way, I want to make sure that I express that I have a podcast, as you know, and I know how hard it is. So I want to commend you for what you do. You did a great interview here. And I'm thankful that I had the opportunity to talk with you today, Audley. And again, I know how difficult it can be to think about the questions. And, the other thing I have when I have a guest on, I'm paying attention to what they say. And when they're done speaking, a lot of times I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to speak now. Like I get lost because I get entranced in what they're saying and try to pay attention. So I appreciate you, man.
Well, and you're not like you got great energy. It's easy to get sucked into that, right? So as you're talking, like, I'm with you. Oh yeah, wait, yeah. We're here for purpose. What's my purpose?
Right. Exactly. So I just want to commend you for great show, man. And thankful for the opportunity. And, you guys connect with me on Instagram too, by the way, at Mikey C-Roc. That one's not Mike. That has a Mikey. Man, I have a great following there. I listen to all the DMs and engagement, man. I love it. So hit me up there.
Awesome. Well, look, Mike, man, I appreciate this. Thanks so much. And I want to ask one last thing before we go. And I see this,
Sure.
See getting caught up. And I forgot one last question I wanted to ask, and ask a lot of our guests when we talk about Audacious. Tell me what's the most audacious thing you've ever done?
Well, I'm not really worried about that. I'll answer that question. I'm more worried about what I'm going to do. Because we're going to, like I said, this tech product that I'm a founder on, Blueprinted, is going to change the self-development. It's going to change the entrepreneurship industry. It's going to change everything because the whole purpose of this is to make sure that people have no excuse not to accomplish something. They're never going to have to wonder how to do something. It's going to be there.
Gotcha.
And so that's what and then exiting that and having the impact that we're going to have. But in the past, man, I think it's just finding this rocket fuel law, really understanding that you can be unstoppable. It's an option for you.
Awesome. Mike, man, I appreciate this. Thank you so much. And be well, my friend.
Appreciate you, man.
However painful they may be, setbacks, failures, tragedies are a part of life. You know, life has a way of kicking us when we're down, and this is where having a full tank of rocket fuel to skyrocket ourselves up to success is so key. Big time shout out to C-Roc for joining the podcast and leaving us with some great tips on how we can be unstoppable. Be sure to pick up a copy of his book at his website, and you also can check out his podcast, the What Are You Made Of podcast, to really develop that mindset that he and I were talking about. And again, we talk about what unstoppable is. You know, it just starts with a mindset. You know, whether we manage to find joy in the daily struggle of life or achieve success is largely dependent on our ability to persevere even through those toughest times, and doing so without giving up. If you're going through any sort of rough period or rough patch, you know, finding something that will give you a little bit of a lift can make a big difference. Remember, life isn't always bad, and whatever you're dealing with, you'll get through it. Absolutely. To our listeners, I appreciate you, as always, for supporting the Audacious Living podcast. Thank you for tuning in and checking us out. Be sure to visit bestaudaciouslife.com. That's our website, and you can get up to speed and caught up. If you happen to miss any past episodes, you can check them all out right there. Again, bestaudaciouslife.com is our website. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.